What you're about to hear is an edition of History and Whateva with James Manning III. And tonight's guest for this episode of Taglines is Mark Sanders. Mark Sanders is a regular at the Savage Henry Comedy Club down in Eureka, California, our sister city. And really happy to have him on. Taglines is all about comedy. This is comedians talking about comedy, telling jokes, doing the comedy thing. This is about comedy, not necessarily history. However, we will keep doing the history part. But, you know, when it comes down to it, I'm a comedian, and I like to talk about comedy. And I like to talk about comedy with other comedians. I love it. And hopefully you'll like this episode too. So join us for this episode of History and Whateva with James Manning III. Taglines. Could use some extra water. I know that we've got like way more snowpack up here than we normally get. So
Oh, has it been colder than normal? Or there's just more precipitation.
yeah, it's actually kind of been both, really.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, but
Are you into? Do you take advantage of it all? Are you into the skiing, snowboarding stuff much?
I am not.
Yeah, me neither.
I've never been able to get into it because it's like it's usually pretty expensive hobby.
Yeah. So goodness, I think it was the Vancouver Olympics when I lived in Seattle. I kind of got really into it for a second. I went to a thrift store, bought some skis for $2, some boots for 4, and some poles for $1 each, and just went up on the mountain and tried to do what I'd seen on TV. And yeah, like almost died. But by the end of the afternoon, I was, figuring out that you zigzag a little bit. You don't just go straight down the mountain. Uh, and for $10, I had my gear. People were like taking pictures of me. I guess my skis were from the '80s, and a lot of people had like seen them when they were kids. And like, oh my God, I haven't seen skis like this in 30 years. Where did you find these? So like, what do you mean? Are these not good? They look good.
Yeah, well, apparently they work still.
I mean, I didn't die. I didn't break anything. Yeah, that was my limited experience with. It was a lesson in humility for sure. When I got to rolled to the bottom of the hill and had to walk up and find my skis. Oh man, it was a lot harder than it looks. It's like Olympians practice or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they like spend like summer or something. I don't know.
There's probably like a boot camp or something that you go to, where just a couple weeks and the thunder and lightning have begun as well.
Wow. Well,
Whew. How's it up there? Has spring arrived, or are y'all still real cold at this point?
it seems like it's coming through. It's starting to get warmer, but you know, we just last Thursday I went down to Medford and it was snowing on the way to and from Medford.
Oh wow.
So, yeah,
Jeez.
at one point it looked like the Starship Enterprise went into warp and I like all I could
Oh
see
wow.
was like
Yeah.
snow in my headlights. I couldn't really see the road. Like luckily it didn't stick. It was pretty warm on the ground level,
Oh,
but
that is lucky. At
it
least
was
you got
just
traction.
yeah, I had traction. Like I didn't feel like my wheels were gonna go out. It was like the visibility was super hard, you know.
Yeah, we've had a couple decent days here. Like yesterday, I went surfing, so it's been we get some sun. It just I don't know. I kind of like the variety, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I that's one thing I like about Oregon. Like up here, we get kind of 3 months of summer, and
Yeah,
then the rest of the time is kind of cold and rainy, which is what I prefer. But it usually
yeah,
happens at like 10 or 15-minute intervals. So if you go out in it, like it rains and stops, and then the skies get really pretty. So there's things about it, you know. Although you probably don't want to surf much out here because it's very cold and full of driftwood,
yeah.
you know.
Most of it is around here too. There's basically two or three beaches within the I don't know 50 to 100 miles or whatever that are pretty good, and then the rest of them it's yeah rocks and sharks and sewage treatment plants and all that good stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And always with a wetsuit and boots and a hood and like basically like you're going scuba diving, but then you hop on a board instead.
Oh, well, you're probably good to go if you want to come up here and try it on some of these beaches. That's what
Right,
you need.
especially in the summer, it might totally be good. We can do a podcast out there.
Yeah, well, I'd love it. I've actually, for what I had planned today,
Oh yeah,
um, I was just kind of excited because I haven't really got a chance to sit down and have a conversation with you, Mark. So,
yeah, not since the fest.
yeah, and we barely got to at that point, you know.
Yeah, yeah, even then, really,
Yeah,
not without dozens of other things going on at the same time.
yeah, the fest is not really a great time to like try to get an in-depth conversation with somebody. Everybody's
Nope,
running
is an
around.
amazing time to meet people, and then you got to actually put in the effort after that.
Yeah. Well, how
Speed,
about
yeah.
take take a minute and introduce yourself. Tell folks where you're at and what you got going on.
So, yeah, my name is Mark Sanders. I'm a comic and kind of host, just general entertainer guy in Eureka, California. I host an open mic at Savage Henry Comedy Club every Sunday night with my co-host Jason Merritt, and we really lean into the kind of community aspect of it. And there's usually 15 to 20 people, and put on about an hour and a half to 2 hour show. We make sure to, you know, really prop up anyone that's going up for the first time and give them a lot of support. And if they say something in the structure of a joke, we'll laugh and just give everybody that kind of experience of what it's like to be on a stage. And it's, a real stage in a real comedy club, and it's just, there's a magic to it. Yeah, every night's a different show, and we love it. I do, the occasional road gig or shows outside of that, but mostly I'm just a kind of a company guy at Savage Henry. I'm there. I'm there at least two open mics a week, and then I'll sit behind the bar and sell drinks sometimes, or host things if people get sick. We still have a fair amount of COVID rolling around here, and other just generic illnesses too. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at.
All
Moved down
right.
here from Seattle a couple of years ago when I realized I couldn't sell things anymore. Like I had
Yeah.
to, yeah, I had to kind of do something creative, um,
So,
and
you
found
know,
this place. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love the club. It's I've only gotten the chance to perform there a couple of times, and be a part of the fest one time, but it's a great place. And actually, I got online here and I'm checking out your flyer.
Oh
For
yeah, tomorrow night.
yeah, for Open Mark.
Open mark tomorrow night. It's our first. It's not a non-comedy thing. It's definitely comedy welcome, but anyone can do music or poetry or sincere spoken word pieces, or hell, I even said I'd tolerate karaoke. I'll bust out a computer and pull up a YouTube karaoke track for you if you want. Anything goes. Um, the openest mic in town.
The openest mic in town. I like it. So,
Yep, that's the tagline. Yep.
are you also a musician then? I'm seeing you got a guitar here, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I play. I once upon a time fancied myself a musician. I was in a band in college that got, played on the radio and went on a little West Coast tour, and we felt like we were really doing it. And then I just kind of like got a quote unquote real job and gave up on it. But I've always kept playing. Um, not Yeah, I don't know. I respect actual musicians too much to necessarily call myself one, but I love it. And
Well, I
um,
think what I identify with is you called yourself an entertainer, and that's really what I consider myself too. I don't put a limit
Yeah,
on it.
because yeah, you also play guitar, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm a
And
really
sing and
yeah, traditional
yeah,
country music guy, second generation singer songwriter.
I
Um,
love that.
I do a mixed show called the Campfire Show where I have comedians go up and I do comedy and I usually get a host and have like a feature comic. And then I play my originals and just end the night with some old school country covers, just
Um,
because that's where I learned to play was really around the fire. That's also where I learned to be
yes.
heckled. So
Yeah, if you can, once you can take the uncles, you can take anybody.
yeah, well, it's like I've got some friends, and my friends are, if they're not making fun of you, they probably don't like you. That's
Yep, yeah, exactly. They don't respect you enough to tell it to your face, or they're not thinking about you enough to make a joke about you.
yeah. Well,
Well, so when is that show? And is that in Eugene?
so I do this. There's another comedian, James Blame. He's like really good at booking shows, and we've had some really good success taking these to. We did a run, did like Medford, Brookings, and Corvallis in a weekend, but we've
Oh,
been
nice.
doing these campfire shows at different places. We've done a couple of them in town, and have been pretty well received, And I've been working on getting a website together to try to promote a little bit more. But
Oh, fantastic. That seems like the kind of thing that would be a hit with it down here. If you felt like coming down and doing one in our neck of the woods sometime.
oh, you better believe it. Uh, but you know how it
I mean,
is.
literally out in the woods or at the club or both. Do a whole Humboldt weekend. Find a bar by the college to do one at, do one at the club, and just literally go do one in the woods somewhere if you want.
Oh yeah. Well, I am all about that. I actually have a Fishman Loudbox, which is it's the mini charge, so it has a
Oh,
battery.
hell yeah. Yep.
So we really could go do it in the woods, and
I
that'd
used
be
to
fun.
sell the Behringer knockoff version of that when I was a sales rep. So that's a good piece of gear.
All right, I knew this was gonna be fun, Mark. I knew this was gonna be fun. We
Yeah, that was my in a previous life. I was an audio guy, so I did backline tech, just setting up the gear for touring bands. So any band that was not bringing all their gear, but also not local. So like a lot of casino fly dates. So Styx and Smokey Robinson and whoever's bought the name to the Temptations these days and those kind of things. Um,
because you run sound at the club there too sometimes, right?
I do. And that's kind of how I ended up. So I started just going to the club because it was open and it was a free place to be, and everyone was just so great there. Just such an awesome place to be. And just one night we had like a issue with one of the speakers, and I just said to Chris, "Hey, in a former life, I used to do this kind of thing," and he said, "Oh well, please, you can't, have at it. Don't worry about you can't make it worse. So go for it."
Yeah.
And, yeah, did it. It was I don't even know what the problem was. I totally cheated and just popped everything in. I popped the mic into the next channel down, and it worked. So I didn't even actually fix the problem. I did go back and find it later, but long story short, just kind of started doing stuff like that and finding ways to support the club, and then would do any open mic where I could, and eventually the regulars and the people booking the local shows started going, "Hey, you're not like not funny. So these three people are sick this week. You want to fill in and hop on the show?" And then I didn't fuck that up too bad, and then it just kind of went from there, and it's so good.
Yeah, well, so is that how you kind of got started doing comedy as well, or what's the kind of your
Yeah, so
backstory with that?
I had a friend in college who was super into stand up, um, that I thought was really cool and wanted to hang out with a lot. So I kind of got into stand up at that point too. And so I did a couple open mics like at Thai places and coffee houses in Seattle in college, and then just honestly didn't want to put the work in to get to the level where I would feel good about it. Like I could get a laugh every once in a while, but mostly was just making like silly jokes about how my mustache was from the 70s and just not, not super reflective or important things that needed to be said. And the band was doing better, so I just didn't put energy into it. And then, so one of the guys that we were really into in college was Kyle Kinane. And then the second night I was in Savage Henry, Kyle Kinane came in and just did the open mic. So like at this open mic I had done, one of my heroes shows up. So then I went home in my head thinking, wow, like this is like a real thing that I could do. Like I see the path now. I just keep going up there and getting better, and then eventually I don't have to have an office job anymore.
Yeah, that's the path, And
I mean, at least that's the idea. And if not, if nothing ever comes of it, it's just a fantastic way to spend your time, and you meet incredible people. Like you, here we are having a conversation a couple hundred miles away and still connected from this awesome experience we had 6 months ago.
yeah, it's like a shared experience, and I really feel that way. Like you're talking about Kyle Kinane. I've seen Kyle Kinane a few times, and sometimes the folks that have enjoyed a lot of success in the comedy industry, they feel sort of out of touch. But when you see them
Mm.
at the open mic, I mean, there he is,
There he is. Yeah,
And the same like with
yeah,
Sam Miller,
exactly.
like Sam Miller's career is just blowing up right now, and he's one of
Yeah,
those
he was just here
people.
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and his first like headlining spot was there at Savage Henry, I believe,
I
and
believe that is true as well. Yeah.
when it means something to me to have somebody who is really out there doing it, but they're not like a TV star. It's like someone who's real and
Yeah,
tangible.
absolutely. It does because I think if you're not kind of tuned in and paying attention to comedy, it seems like, well, there's open micers and then there's Jerry Seinfeld, and those are the different types of stand-up comedies that people are aware of. But there's this whole world in the middle that a lot of us live here, and it's great.
Yeah, well, and I often find that people who are not involved in comedy are just kind of like they have no clue about any of it.
Yeah, and just one thing I did not realize is just the extent to which it is a like community. I've like, but beyond, man, I wanted to say brotherhood, but it's not a male thing. It's just um,
It's like
uh, but yeah, stupid gendered shit is failing us right now. But
does
it's
does
a community,
fellowship does
a
fellowship
fellowship.
count?
There you go,
Yeah.
bingo. Thank you. It's a fellowship, is what it is, and it just you meet people that are from totally different walks of life, and you would live wildly different lives, and you all just come together on stage, and we're just part of a fellowship. It is an amazing thing, and that it doesn't seem to change much. Like Eddie Pepitone will come to and be at the festival, and we'll sit and watch hours of comedy and laugh at everybody else's jokes because he still loves it, and he's part of the. He's not showing up in a limo right before the show. He's part of the community too.
Absolutely. Well, and that's one of the cool things that I find about comics is like the hang. That's
Yes.
really important to comics is hanging out with the other comics. And if you're, fun about it, it's almost like improv when you're hanging out with other comics. It's like yes
Yeah.
and to the whole conversation, and it gets ridiculous sometimes, and that is so much fun. you know?
It is. It's magic.
Yeah, because
It's magic.
so this is one of the things that I have found about stand up, and it's my own opinion, and see if you think this is proper. But I really think
Right
that
on.
stand up comedy is the ultimate in public speaking because
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right? I mean, you can give a speech on a subject and people will applaud at the end or they listen the whole time and they're polite. But with comedy, it's like you either get that laugh or you don't. And how
Yep.
you phrase that is very important, you know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of responses other than just sitting politely or clapping. There's, people can just go head to the bar and grab a drink, or they can just walk out. They can boo, they can sigh. The worst thing is like those just involuntary responses where they're not even trying to boo, they're just like cringing because it hurts. It's pain, and I think when it works well, it can also function just like a church where everyone gets together and just yells at God for a few minutes, and then we hug about it afterward.
Yeah. Well, and that's the what you're really searching for as a comic is like we're trying to connect with some sort of common ground,
Yeah,
you know, and you don't you might not get a laugh, but sometimes you hit the common ground and you get that groan, you know, and
yep. The right kind of ground can be as good as a really big laugh if it's if it's what you need, and just that connection is ultimately, I think, the common thread there. Just when you find a way to phrase something that takes this big abstract thought in your head and puts it into the world in a way that other people can receive it, and you can see on their face 100 at a time that it hit and that you're not alone, and people feel more or less the way you feel. And it's just a big scary universe, and we're all, nobody's got it figured out.
yeah, that's the truth. Nobody's got it figured out.
Nobody.
Well, and you know, comedy's one of those things that's universal, and it's like if you can make somebody laugh in one place, you can pretty much that joke might work almost everywhere if you get a good
Hmm.
joke. And that I find is so interesting. Like comedians tour the country and the world and they do their same material and that stuff works all over the world
Yeah,
in a lot of cases
and
like
yeah, and so much of it is, facial expressions and tone and delivery and, timing, obviously.
oh
So it's almost like, to connect it back to music. It's I think, a very similar thing. The performance and the show energy of getting all together to watch and receive this thing together.
yeah, there's a lot of crossover I find between the musical world and the comedy world. And that's actually why I started doing comedy. Well, I mean, one of the reasons
Oh, there.
is because I kept I wanted this show. I wanted to do something like the campfire show. I wanted to use comedy to make me a better performer so that I could do a better job of playing music and telling stories about the songs that I've written. And I find that the
Yeah,
more I write jokes, the more I have access to that musical writing part of my brain too.
that totally makes sense.
Like, because it's the same muscle almost. It's just that they're two completely different mediums of doing the
Yeah,
same thing, right?
yeah, but it is. You're taking ideas and then taking words to kind of represent those, but structuring it in a way where you're telling a story and you kind of unveil it piece by piece so that, I don't know, it's the same kind of magic.
And I think magic's the key word there.
Yeah,
Because like
totally.
there's no even as a musician, like I found that there's something that happens with comedy. Like people will give you a chance as long as you're not being too out of line with comedy. Like people will sit there and
Hmm.
listen. Like they may not connect with you, but they'll give you a shot. But I've found if you're playing like bad music, whoa, dude,
Oh,
they're not
that's
really
a
into it.
wow. That's a really good point. I've never, yeah, I've never really compared the two in that way. But yeah, there's almost like a vulnerability to music where it is like kind of painful to watch somebody struggle through it. And I guess we're all more accustomed to watching people talk than we are sing, I guess.
But I'm
But
not sure
yeah,
what that is. It's like with music, people just don't give you too long. You only have so long to see if they either like it or they don't. And
that's true.
a lot of times you don't really care. It's like with music, it's like, well, it is what it is, and you can choose to like it or not. But comedy just isn't really that same way. Like,
Yeah, because the story, yeah, there can be parts of the story that are rough to listen to, and that builds the tension that, makes the laugh work. And I guess, especially a savvy audience kind of knows that, is willing to go, okay, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and accept the premise and at least let him have his 5 minutes. Whereas, like you said, music, it's like music needs to be good for its own sake. I don't care if the bridge of this song is good. If the verses are terrible, I'm not going to listen to it anyway.
yeah, or if somebody just hasn't put in the work to like really know their instrument, that that can be
Yeah,
difficult. But
yeah, yeah, for sure. Or tuning is a big thing, especially as a sound guy. When I'm the one people look at if things sound bad, it's like, man, tune your instrument, because that's like,
yeah,
that's the one thing I really can't do.
it's like,
You
yeah, I
know?
can't put a auto tuner on your guitar. Okay, you got to handle
Yeah,
that.
if we were recording, sure. Yep.
Yeah, I
But
might be
no,
able to
right in
fix
this,
it.
I don't have a Pro Tools rig on this 12 channel waterproof mixer at this wedding.
It's so true, man. I mean,
You
I run
want
sound.
reverb in the monitors? No, reverb's for everybody else to make you sound better. You need to know exactly how bad you sound so that you can adjust. You don't get reverb in the monitors. No.
Yeah, why would you want that anyway? You should be
No,
listening.
yeah, reverb in the monitors means something's plugged in where it shouldn't be.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that's like a whole nother aspect of entertainment. That's why there's a sound person. Because, I mean, I run a lot of sound these days just for some of the shows that we produce here in town. And also, if I book a gig and they don't have sound, I have a PA and I run it. So
Nice.
I've had to learn, oh man, I really had to learn how to run a sound system because it's not easy. So I'm always happy when they have a PA and a good sound guy. It's like, oh, well, this is just going to be smooth. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, for music gigs, it is night and day if you get into a room and somebody is there who knows the room and has the system dialed in, and it's just, it's such a luxury.
Yeah. And I've really come to like it when I can just, show up to a comedy spot and you just pick up the mic and do your thing
Oh,
and
yeah.
then off you go. You don't have to
Yep.
pick it up, you don't have to break it down,
It
none of that.
really, yeah, it makes it a 15-minute job that you can spend an hour mentally preparing for instead of a 3-hour job that you have to try to get ready for while you're plugging shit in and carrying things. And
Mhm.
it's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting part about comedy too, I think, is like the mental preparedness for some reason is a whole lot more than my mental preparedness for playing music gigs cuz that's all like super memorized for me and
That's,
then
yeah, exactly. I almost tune out if I'm playing music. Like, I just let
yeah,
the body go. Just do it.
it's like trance. It's like a trance
Yeah,
like kind of meditative state.
totally. A fugue, if you will.
Yeah. And comedy, oh, no, you can't.
Nope. Nope. You have to be so in the moment that you don't even care what you thought you were going to say next.
Well, because it's such a crapshoot, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know what's going to happen at a live comedy show. You can load the dice if you want, and that's what we do, writing material.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
but you don't. Sometimes you get 7-11. Sometimes you get snake eyes.
Hmm. I think for me, it's just being willing to pick them up and roll again. Just keep rolling. You don't sit and stare at the dice and blame them for coming up wrong. Just
Oh, That is excellent way to think about it because yeah, I think I've said it before. Comedy is more about being able to just take it to the chin, to use a boxing
Hmm.
analogy, but you just kind of have to pull yourself back up after you get in there and just get pummeled is what it feels like to me sometimes like you've just got punched in the stomach or something if you've had a bad set and you get off stage and it's just kind of like ugh, you know.
Yeah, there is. That's the other side of it, I guess. Is that it is the lows are as you
Well,
know.
that's kind of a
But that's
one
where your
thing.
other comics come in when you walk off the stage and you talk to your people, and everybody's been through it before, and it makes the next ones just that much better.
Yeah. Well, and on that same kind of token, so this is one of the things I actually wanted to talk about was the like a good joke and a bad joke. So a joke that falls flat and one that hits really hard. So I'm kind of to the point now where I almost I almost enjoy it when a joke falls flat for a couple of different reasons. Like sometimes you can pivot off of that and it's funny. Other times
Yep.
it's like I know that this joke's no good now and I don't have to keep working it, or it's just like
Right.
it tells you something about the joke, right? I mean,
Definitely. And so I especially find it interesting when it's a joke that you know works, that works at your home club, you've taken it on the road, your mom even likes it, and then for some reason you find a group of people that just not a single one of them are into it. And it's sometimes it's the joke, sometimes you said it wrong and you don't even remember, but you mixed up a word order thing, and it is just it's comforting in a way because it's like, okay, well, maybe all the other jokes that didn't hit weren't so bad either, because that I know that's a decent joke, and they didn't laugh at that, so maybe they're just not laughing.
yeah, the there's a really it's almost some sort of glutton for punishment that it's like I'm just going to keep taking these up here. And especially at open mics like I have a body of material now, so some of them I can really rely on to be like show material. But when I go to an open mic,
Hmm.
I'm not trying to bring out my A game. Like I'm really trying to bring out my new stuff. And if they fall flat,
Yep.
I'm not worried about it at an open mic because that's what it's for.
Hmm. Absolutely. And either I try to record my open mics now and just be in the moment and not. I do a lot of prep, but then try not to be too dependent on the prep and just see how it goes. And a lot of times the audience will kind of lead you to the punchline. You'll see a smirk or a giggle from some part of the premise that you hadn't really fully considered. And you're like, oh my God, shit, that is what's funny about it.
Yeah,
And
or
it's,
or you're telling the joke and they laugh at one point that is not the punchline, and then your punchline's like no
yeah.
good.
Or I had one, I was experimenting with callbacks, and I started just using that Clapton song, It's in the Way That You Use It. And there were like two or three points in the show where I yelled that. And then I set up another joke and I had a totally real punchline for it. And someone in the audience cut me off with "It's in the way that you use it," and the whole crowd like joined in and loved it. And I just completely abandoned. I was like, okay, well, fuck the punchline then. Like, it does not matter what I was gonna say. That's the joke now, and we're just gonna do that three or four more times and get out of here. Because what, like, my plans are irrelevant. The room has decided that we're just gonna sing Clapton now.
Yes, that
It
and
was
that
fun, but I can't go do that. I can't like put that in my pocket and go, all right, anytime I'm having a rough time on stage, I'll just sing "It's in the Way That You Use It," because that's not how it works. Like, it worked that time.
the unpredictable nature of comedy.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody because I think there are so many different aspects of performing live comedy that a lot of people don't really know of until you're in it for long enough because you start doing these paid gigs if you're lucky enough to get on,
Hmm.
those type of audiences, and it seems like they require something different. They want something more than what you can find at an open mic, and
Right.
it's often difficult to figure out. Okay, well, where's the line with this audience? It's like every time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I mean the club is pretty raunchy, and I usually can just kind of go a little bit raunchy to get people's attention if I'm losing it. But with a road crowd that you don't know and you don't know what their sensibilities are, and it's it can be, yeah, I struggle with that. I'm trying to get a clean-ish 10 minutes. I think I've got five that isn't too offensive.
you know, well, and it's all about kind of. I don't know. This is the way I feel about it. I have a bunch of clean jokes that are like Magoo, and I feel a
Hmm.
little Magoo when I'm telling them. But if that's what they want, that's what I'm
Yeah,
gonna do.
and that's when it comes back to being an entertainer. It's like, are we here to, spew our manifestos into the universe, or are we here to put on a show, make some people relax and you know, be part of the grand tradition of entertainment that goes back millions of years?
Yeah, and
Okay,
even
probably
the
not millions. It's probably thousands, maybe tens or hundreds of thousands. I'm not sure when performance as such showed up in evolutionary history, but it wasn't millions of years, I don't think. Maybe.
well, we're not really
See,
sure. We keep
get at
finding
us,
new stuff.
scientists. We keep finding older and older shit. We do. It's true. I
Well,
know we found flutes that are made out of bones that are very, very, very old. And I think it's not necessarily safe, but I think it's at least not crazy to assume that if there's a flute, there may have been a performance.
I think that at any point, if there's ever been spoken word, I've heard that laughter actually precedes spoken word.
I think it has to. I mean, when we've got like there are so many, we find laughter in animals whose common ancestors are pretty far back. I mean, I guess laughter in like crows and hyenas is kind of independently evolved, and we can't necessarily assume that our common ancestor with a hyena also laughed, but other apes, sure.
It's just sort of in our nature to have some sort of relief,
Yeah,
from the tension of survival.
exactly.
Well, and y- that's why I'm sort of just hooked. Like I'm a bit obsessed with comedy joke writing, and I think I always have been to some extent. And even when I was a kid, I was always trying to get that laugh, but I mean, similar to now, I didn't know how to write the joke. It's like you try things out as a kid, and you're like, you only have so many words to work with and so many ways to put them together. And
Yeah,
then,
I think, yeah, and it's like almost like cataloging. You don't know what makes anything funny, but you know when something's funny, so you can kind of collect funny things, and then at some point you start to see the matrix a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And, at this point, I feel like I have a lot to say that's relevant, but it's almost like my skill level isn't there yet. Like I want to talk about things that are important to people and need to get the information out there, but it's like if you're going to
Yeah,
be a stand-up, you have to be funny. So how do you talk about serious issues and make a joke about it? To me, that's one of the main forms of comedy that I really enjoy about it. Is like you can make a statement and make people laugh, but also make them think and reflect on it.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like the compass that I try to use on that stuff, because it is really such a difficult line to walk, is like if it's my pain that I'm joking about, then I'm willing to go out on a limb and risk it not being all that funny. And especially at an open mic, I'm willing to just have people go, no, that's just sad. That's not funny. But
Y-
if I'm trying to talk about some social issue or any other people or anybody else's story. I just, if I accidentally riff on it in the moment and it works, and people who are of that in that situation tell me that they appreciated it, then maybe. But I just try to keep it to my own stuff, so that if I'm wrong, or if I say something that's not, correct or whatever, it's me, and it's about me, and I'm the victim of it. Um, but not a whole lot of super important social stuff happens to me, so
Well,
it's tough.
well, yeah, it's a very kind of fine line, I think, because comedy is so incredibly personal. Like
Hmm.
the deeper you get into your own bubble, your own experience, that's like where the comedy comes from. And I'm constantly searching for it. Actually, this is one thing I wanted to I said that we might do is kind of maybe toss around a couple of jokes. Would you be into that?
Sure.
Because I recently I just wrote this joke a couple of days ago, and I tried it at an open mic, and it worked, and I was like, oh, I've got more to this. But it's about so I went to the doctor for, like, I have a little thing going on with my nose and the ears and stuff, and she prescribed Flonase. And so, like, I'm a big dude, and I'm pretty resistant to everything, alcohol or like Vicodin and stuff. When I've had surgeries, that's not enough.
Hmm.
I've even been maced before, but
Damn.
that wasn't because of anything that I was doing to anyone particular. It was a regional thing at the time. But
Sure.
I can deal with that. But apparently, Flonase gives me a heart arrhymia. So
Wow.
if you spray that in my eyes, yeah, you might just give me a heart attack. So, so
Wow.
that's my personal experience.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of things to talk about the pharmaceutical industry and about drugs and about all that. But there's your corner of that world.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have no allergies to anything, but I felt like I was like, well, this might be it. I don't know what's going on here, but
See, and that's like, I take Flonase fairly. Would never occur to me that it might be dangerous to somebody. So I love that about comedy too, that it can be a peek into a little, like, a world or a different side of some everyday object. Like, I'm looking at Flonase right now. It's on my shelf.
yeah, and
It's like,
it's over the
it's
counter, and
it
most
may as well be a
people,
loaded gun for you. Crazy.
yeah, right. Like, who would have thought,
It's and that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's like that's the beginning of the joke. Like, it's starting to form, and it's all about adding. Okay, where do I remove from? Uh, where do I take away from the setup? And how do I make the punch
Yeah,
harder? And where are the
for sure.
facial and the movements and am I clutching my chest? Or, it's like you
It's
take
almost,
it.
I don't know if you're like, how into movies and stuff you are, but there's kind of a thing with screenwriting that, like, really, as soon as possible, as soon as you know who the characters are and what world you're in, something should happen. I feel like that's kind of the punchline. Like, you want to get there as fast as possible, but occasionally you'll, like, remove the wrong Jenga block, and then the punchline, like you said, just doesn't hit anymore, because there's some thing that we were supposed to say, and it's like, maybe it took a minute to get to the punchline, and it could have taken 45, but you whittled it down to 30, and now it doesn't work at all. And it's alchemy. There's no there's no way to know. You gotta
Yes.
keep at it.
And I love that about comedy. It really is a Jenga block or a Rubik's cube or some sort of mathematical
Hmm.
equation, and you can get in there, and if you write the joke proper and really work it out, it will work for the most part. It won't
Yeah,
always
any,
work,
like,
but
really, any, if you put the work in, anything can be a joke.
yeah, I've been working on a bunch of these to just try to figure out, because I always feel like I want more. I want the next joke that's going to get me a bigger laugh. I don't want to rest on my laurels and try to figure out, oh, I'll just keep using these. No, I want the big laugh, the next one, the better. And sometimes I think that's too much, too much material. But
I don't know. As long as it's healthy and you're not, hurting yourself in pursuit of it, I think it's good to want to produce a lot because if people are coming to your shows, especially like I'm not at the point where I'm touring, so if I do 3 shows a week, there's people that see all 3 of those shows, and I don't want them to just be seeing the same stuff all the time. And I'm not talking about open mics. Open mics you go and practice and do the same bit 100 times till it works. It's part of the game, um, but yeah, I know what you mean about wanting to have a big repertoire and wanting to go like, all right, what's the next thing? So that when I'm in a casino in Grants Pass, like I got to find something they're gonna like.
well, and if you write that, if you get the alchemy correct, you have a pretty good shot of making it work.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're willing to kind of do the work and keep working on it, I do. I don't know. That's another dilemma too, though, with because nobody has all the time in the world, and I don't think anyone has like everyone would always love more time to spend on comedy. So at some point, it's like, okay, how much writing should I do on stuff that isn't working that I want to work versus how much writing should I do on things that I'm not passionate about but that's working really well that I could get more out of. And I don't know. I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's different for everybody, but that's
Yeah,
one of the struggles for me.
I definitely have some jokes that I've done over and over again, expecting them to work at some point, and I'm just like, no, this has never worked. You need to give this up. But I
Well,
like
so
them.
I have, and yeah, exactly. I have one that's all right. So I moved to a Victorian house in Eureka, and I was talking to this woman, and she said she's always wanted to have sex in a Victorian house. I said, well, you're in luck because you're in one. And she said, "Oh, this doesn't look like a Victorian house. It's not painted all fancy. There's no like turrets and all that stuff." I said, yeah, well, that doesn't matter. Victorian isn't actually an architectural style; it's a time period. So this was built in the 1880s when Queen Victoria was queen. It's a Victorian house. And so she said, "Well, great. Then please, please, please have sex with me in it." So I guess you could say I got off on a technicality,
Yeah.
and that is a long walk for a very soft punchline. And, but I like it. It's fun to me. And I
Yeah.
refuse to give it up, but it usually falls completely flat because it's just not that funny. It's like too long of a walk. If I could figure out how to get there faster, it might work.
I I know the feeling because I keep doing this joke too, where it's like, if weed was dangerous, Willie Nelson be dead. And the funny thing is nobody really ever laughs at that joke when I tell it on stage. Like they're afraid that that joke's gonna kill Willie Nelson.
Oh, that's no, that's yeah, hasn't yet.
No, and I'm like,
I
he's the
do.
only one who's still around.
I love it when a joke is just saying the truth, but it's so funny. It's just such a funny truth. And it's like, yeah, we put all these people in jail, and that part of it is really not funny. All the lives it destroys, but all this fuss over this thing that obviously is not dangerous.
Right.
And that's a really funny, simple way to prove it. It's like, you know, into Richard Feynman at all, the physicist. He totally random, but so during when the Challenger exploded, everyone was trying to say it wasn't their fault, and there was nothing we could have done. It was just totally random, blah 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 blah. And Richard Feynman's like, "Nah, there are these O-rings. If you would have like just tested your shit like a little bit better, you'd have known they weren't going to work. And this person should have noticed that that didn't happen. This person should have, blah, 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 blah. And no one believed him. And he just quietly took one of the O-rings during the deliberations, like in court, and put it in a glass of ice water. And it was supposed to be all squishy and expand and, be an important part of the engine. And they were saying, no, it's totally fine. We did the test. It's not affected by the cold, whatever, whatever. And he just pulled it out of the thing and squeezed it, and it didn't go back to a circle. It just stayed completely squished because it had been in the ice water. And he's like, well, I mean, look, just look.
Yeah,
It's right here.
here's the evidence.
It's just, you can't ignore it anymore. And it's like, there was nothing funny about that day because it was a bunch of astronauts that died and a bunch of money spent to try to make sure no one felt responsible for it. But that can work in comedy too. That laser focus of finding these big, awful truths, but finding a way to just say it in like 3 words and show it to people in a way that they will have to laugh at because it's just obviously true.
And it's almost like I've heard this said before, where it's like if you're too close to the pain or you're too far away from it, the joke doesn't work. It's got to be like at a 45-degree angle. I believe that was Leanne Jeswin's. And that's really seems to be correct, because it's like maybe the Willie Nelson joke doesn't work because it's just too damn close to the truth.
I guess it depends. I think it would work like in Humboldt County, where weed is and has been kind of functionally legal for a long time, and we all are, can kind of giggle about it. But there's a lot of people still in jail for so it's
well, and that's just that's one of the things that I always want to do with the jokes, is like I hope that it does more than just make people laugh. Like I hope that it makes them kind of take a look at certain things introspectively, and hopefully that the irony stands out,
Yeah, I think you do a great job of that on History and Whateva, so I'll plug there, of keeping it a fun conversation and keeping it, but with the gravitas and being, talking about serious subjects, but not being kind of so morose about it.
Well, yeah, and there's so many podcasts out there that are just the facts. They're kind of just rolling over it, step by step by step by step.
Yeah,
and
then there's a lot that are just the jokes, and there's no real content. So I appreciate the balance.
Wow. Well, hey, thank you so much. But that's one reason why I wanted to start to do these kind of tagline episodes, because when you're on subject, or if you can try to keep comedians on a subject like a historical event, that could be very difficult. But we don't get a chance to just open up and talk like we have about the nature of what we're doing. And the reason why I started this pod is because I found that comics are very intelligent people, like incredibly intelligent, and some of them are as into history as I am.
And one thing I've noticed is, like, bizarrely almost, or just unusually emotionally intelligent and aware. Most comics I know hug each other and say I love you when it's time to say goodbye, because we're people that suffer a lot and we know we might not always see each other again. And I've never been in a community of people that are like that, except for, kindergarten. There's a love and an honesty about the love. I think a lot of communities love each other, but there's an awkwardness about talking about it. But for two, just 2 grown men, or a man and a woman who I don't have any attraction or romantic interest, just casually talking about how much they love each other all the time. And it happens all day, every day, outside our comedy club.
Yeah. Well, and
It's just a magical thing, man, to keep bringing that word back up.
well, it shows the connection that's between, like, I don't want to say tortured spirits, but sometimes I just feel like that. I'm not sure that I've met any comedian that doesn't struggle with some sort of mental health issue. Like myself, I know that
Hmm.
since I started comedy, like I didn't really have anxiety before. I've always had depression, like you know, throughout my whole life, but anxiety kind of started when I started doing comedy seriously because not only
Interesting.
am I trying to write jokes all the time, but I really care about my on stage persona and what the other comics think of me.
Yeah, yeah, that is a big thing. I think ultimately, as long as it can be, anxiety can be crippling and awful, and I don't want to dismiss it or say that's a good thing, but I think that like that compass and that caring a lot about what you say and about your community and stuff is, can lead to some good things. But I hope it's not, bumming you out too much. Anxiety is pretty serious.
Yeah. Well, it's I kind of find that it is one of those tools that I really kind of consider a lot of these things like depression can be a tool because you have to find a way out. And
Yeah.
I know for other folks that anxiety can be that crippling feeling, and for me, it's not quite that way, but it's because I believe that the um, antidote for fear is action. So a lot of times
Mm,
when you step on that stage and you start doing your thing, or for me doing my thing, the anxiety like goes away. And the depression, well, that can't even be there because I have way too much to think about right now.
yeah, absolutely. Depression can just be drowned out. That's, I think, my easiest way to deal with it. I don't know if it's healthier, but it works.
Yeah, and that's what we're all looking for is just like what works.
Yeah, well, exactly. What works long enough to get you through the healthy thing if you can find it. And
I try to
yeah,
stay healthy mentally so that I feel like I can do better comedy, and exercise so that I can keep my brain working. Um,
absolutely.
but
I used to think like that I wouldn't be funny if I got healthier. Um, and I think a lot of people feel that. And I think it's almost like a relative of addiction. Like there's just some addiction to unhealthy cycles or some self-destructive impulse or something that I had that just made any excuse not to go find a therapist and not to try taking something or just talking to people and being honest about the struggles really. But I think we all go through it,
mhm.
more than certainly more than it seems sometimes when you're feeling alone.
Well, and
Uh,
maybe it's maybe it's one of those things with comics is where we all kind of understand what that feels like, and when we're together and we get to have these good conversations, those kind of feelings are almost put aside because there's some sort of energy shared between us all that we understand,
mm-hmm,
you know.
mm-hmm.
And I love it. Now, I know we've been on here for quite a while,
Oh
so
yeah, I guess we're
I don't want to tie you
getting
up
up
for
there.
much. I want to be respectful of your time. And
If I didn't have a mic to run to, I would say let's just talk all night. But I probably should.
all right, you got to go do your mic,
Gotta go do the thing.
Mark. This has been absolutely a lot of fun for me. And
It did. I had a question for you. Are you coming to the fest this year?
oh yeah, you betcha.
Alrighty.
Let me
I
see.
will.
What's the dates on the fest this
October
year?
5, 6th, and 7th. And bracelets are on sale now for the whole weekend. Individual show tickets will start soon. Right now, we're still doing the early bird thing for like probably another week or two. So whole festival for $50. Um,
Wow.
if you head on over to savagehenrycomedy.com.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good deal, and yeah, I will most certainly be there if I can make it at all. It's definitely one of my destinations because I get to meet so many cool people and go to all these different venues and check out all this great comedy. So
Well, fantastic. I'll send you the dates again and just put it on paper somewhere so that we're all scheduled. But yeah, look forward to seeing you and hope to talk to you again before then.
yeah, well, maybe we'll do another tagline episode here soon.
I'd love that. This was a blast. Oh, and I guess it's gross, but I guess I'll throw out my Instagram. It's just Marky Sanders loves you. If you're in Eureka, come to the open mics on Sundays, or anybody else's open mic on Wednesday, or some Mondays. But Sunday and Wednesday are always open mics. 9 o'clock. Savage Henry.
Hey, I love it. Savage Henry Comedy Club. Uh, yeah, if you're in Eureka, go check it out. You will not regret it. It's one of my favorite places.
We love to hear that. You're one of our favorites. Can't wait to have you back.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark Sanders, and we will be talking to you soon. You have a good night, all right?
All right, you too. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.